If you are over 60, 5 simple daily habits can make your brain sharper, steadier, and more resistant to the slow slips that come with age. By the end of this piece, you'll know exactly what those 5 habits are, why scientists point to them, and one tiny thing you can start today that will actually move the needle on your memory and independence. Before we begin, tell me where you're watching from and how old you are in the comments. And stay with me until the end. The most powerful habit is the last one. Number 5, move every day. A steady body, a resilient brain. A long-term study from a major university followed thousands of older adults for a decade and found that people who maintained moderate physical activity, brisk walking or similar, for about 150 minutes a week, had roughly a 30 to 40% lower chance of cognitive decline compared with sedentary peers. The mechanism is not magic. Movement increases blood flow to the brain, reduces inflammation, and raises levels of BDNF, a protein that helps neurons survive and grow. Think of BDNF like the fertilizer for the brain's young plants. Without it, sprouts struggle. Imagine Joan, 71, who used to sit by the kitchen window for hours watching the neighborhood. Her daughter convinced her to try a short morning walk. At first, Joan fought the laces and the stiffness. On the third day, she noticed something small. She could remember the name of the new mail carrier without pausing. That was enough. She added 5 minutes the next week, then 10. Within 2 months, she described her memory as less foggy and her steps as lighter. What you can do right now? Schedule a 30-minute walk within 2 hours of waking, 5 days this week. If stairs are a problem, break it into 2 15-minute walks. Make one of them brisk enough to raise your breathing but still allow conversation. Aim for sun exposure early. Morning light helps set your circadian clock. If weather or mobility limits you, try a seated marching routine or a short Tai Chi video. Anything that gets your heart rate up and your limbs moving. Number 4, prioritize deep sleep. Don't trade it for TV. Sleep isn't passive. A study out of a major West Coast research center tracked sleep quality in older adults and reported that short sleep and fragmented sleep were linked to a 40 to 50% higher risk of later cognitive decline. One reason? During slow-wave sleep, the brain's glymphatic system clears metabolic waste, including proteins associated with dementia. Poor sleep means the house doesn't get cleaned at night. You've probably felt the difference after a night of bad rest. Names vanish, words hide, attention frays. Over time, those nights add up. The mechanism includes changes in slow-wave sleep and REM architecture that affect memory consolidation. Repeated disruption is associated with shrinkage in memory-critical areas like the hippocampus. Practical steps. Keep a consistent bedtime and wake time, even on weekends. Dim bright screens at least an hour before bed. Instead, read a paper book, listen to gentle music, or practice coherent breathing. Inhale for 5 counts, exhale for 5 minutes before you turn out the light. Avoid heavy meals and alcohol close to bedtime. If you use prescription sleep aids or over-the-counter antihistamines to sleep, check with your clinician. Some of these medications are linked to confusion and long-term risk in older adults and should not be stopped abruptly. A simple nightly ritual, warm chamomile tea, decaffeinated, a quiet walk around the block, a 5-minute breathing routine can shift sleep quality in a few weeks. Number 3, eat for your brain. The right fats, the right balance. Nutrition matters. Large dietary trials and observational studies have found that Mediterranean-style patterns, plenty of vegetables, fish, olive oil, nuts, and whole grains, are associated with slower cognitive decline, compared with diets high in processed foods and refined sugars. One randomized feeding trial reported that participants following a Mediterranean pattern showed better scores on memory tests over several years. Why? The brain is mostly fat, and the wrong fats and sugar spikes increase oxidative stress and inflammation, damaging cell membranes and signaling pathways. Omega-3 fatty acids, found in fatty fish like salmon and in walnuts and flax, support synaptic health. Conversely, diets high in certain processed seed oils and refined carbohydrates can tilt the balance toward inflammation. Small, immediate changes you can make: swap your usual frying oils for extra virgin olive oil or coconut oil when appropriate. Start breakfast with whole foods: an egg, a small bowl of berries, and a slice of whole grain toast, or plain Greek yogurt with nuts and a spoonful of ground flaxseed. Aim for at least 2 servings of oily fish per week, or discuss a fish oil supplement with your clinician if you don't eat fish. When reading labels, look for foods low in added sugars and avoid long lists of unpronounceable oils and additives. A micro habit: replace 1 packaged snack per day with a handful of nuts and a piece of fruit. Number 2, keep your social life alive. Call 1 person this week. Social connection isn't just comfort, it's measurable protection. Multiple cohort studies show that loneliness and social isolation are linked to higher risk of dementia. In some analyses, increasing risk by 40% or more. The pathways are both psychological and physiological. Isolation can raise stress hormones, weaken immune responses, and reduce cognitive stimulation. Social activity engages multiple cognitive systems at once: language, memory, attention, and emotion, which is precisely what keeps neural networks flexible. Picture Henry, a retired electrician who stopped going to the church choir after his wife died. He felt smaller each week. His neighbor invited him to a community gardening group on Saturdays. At first, he went reluctantly, hands in soil, listening to conversation. Over months, he found himself remembering song lines and names of plants. He laughed more. The subtle change was a protection built into weekly repetition. Practical habits: start with 1 call this week: a neighbor, an old colleague, a grandson. If mobility is a barrier, try a telephone book club, a neighborhood walking group, or a volunteering role with a few hours at a community pantry. Try a weekly small group class, chair yoga, singing, or crafts. If you're unsure where to begin, ask your clinic or local senior center about beginner drop-in groups. Even brief, regular social routines, a once-weekly phone date, or a monthly potluck, produce outsized benefits over time. Number 1, challenge your brain with new, meaningful learning. This is the strongest one. Researchers consistently find that lifelong learning and mental novelty are among the most powerful positive influences on cognitive reserve. In large observational studies, people who regularly engaged in complex mental activities, learning a musical instrument, studying a new language, taking on unfamiliar skills, showed slower cognitive decline and, in some work, larger hippocampal volumes than peers with more routine mental lives. Cognitive reserve doesn't mean you won't age, but it means the brain has redundancies and flexibility that handle damage better. The mechanism is neuroplasticity. New learning stimulates synaptogenesis, increases BDNF, and recruits alternative brain circuits to perform tasks. It's not the same as passive crossword puzzles. Novelty matters. Repeating a routine is maintenance. Learning something new is renovation. The mental challenge needs to be just beyond comfortable, frustrating enough to require effort, but satisfying enough to provide immediate feedback. Start with 1 micro habit. Spend 20 minutes 3 times this week on a new skill that's meaningful to you. If you've always wanted to learn Spanish, try a beginner lesson app and practice with 1 phrase aloud every day. If music calls to you, pick up a simple ukulele or keyboard and learn 3 chords. If phones intimidate you, take a local technology class with a friend and practice a single new function each session. The key is consistency and novelty. Mix modalities. Pair language learning with conversation practice, or piano practice with reading musical notation. Each time you push slightly beyond comfort, you're forging new pathways. Along the way, small scaffolds help. Use spaced repetition for vocabulary. Set a daily 15-minute timer for focused practice and celebrate tiny wins. The first sentence you understand, the first chord you play smoothly. Find a partner, join a class, or record your progress. Social learning multiplies the effect. These habits overlap and reinforce one another. Movement improves sleep and stimulates BDNF. Better sleep supports memory consolidation for new learning. A Mediterraneanish diet reduces inflammation, so your brain responds more robustly to exercise and training. Social engagement provides the emotional fuel you need to keep practicing and to stick with routines. You might be thinking, are there pills, supplements, or quick fixes? Some supplements, like omega-3s, have evidence for modest benefits in certain populations, and others are being restudied. Always check with your healthcare professional before starting any supplement or changing prescribed medications. Never stop or alter medications without medical guidance. Small, sustainable behavior changes tend to offer the most reliable long-term benefit. Imagine a morning routine you can start tomorrow. A 30-minute walk in the sunlight, a whole food breakfast with berries and a boiled egg, 20 minutes of structured learning, perhaps a language lesson or a new song, and a quick call to a friend. It's not traumatic. It's a tidy set of actions that, repeated, shifts the slope of aging in your favor. There's one more habit, the one researchers call the single strongest social risk and the most powerful remedy in disguise. And it deserves its own moment because it changes how you live day to day. It's the habit most people overlook, the one that affects not just memory, but purpose, mood, and the texture of your relationships. Wait until you hear what it is. It's simpler than you think, and, for many, easier to start than adding another pill to the cabinet. That habit is simple, and it is everything. Tend your relationships. Stay socially connected, not superficially, but with regular, reciprocal contact that gives you meaning and requires engagement. Decades of research now show that loneliness and social isolation are among the strongest, most consistent risk factors for cognitive decline. Conversely, rich, purposeful relationships act like scaffolding for the mind. They reduce stress, encourage healthy routines, provide cognitive challenge, and give reason to get out of bed in the morning. Why social ties matter so much? Social connection alters biology. Calm, dependable relationships blunt the stress response. They lower cortisol spikes, reduce systemic inflammation, and improve sleep quality. They also force the brain to work in ways that solitary activities rarely do. Decoding tone, tracking stories, remembering details about other people, improvising in conversation, and holding multiple perspectives. Those subtle, everyday mental workouts recruit broad networks in the brain and build reserve. Emotionally, relationships provide motivation. People who are connected are more likely to stick to exercise plans, show up for lessons, go to appointments, and eat better, because they're accountable to others and because their activities are embedded in reciprocal life. Purposeful roles, being a neighbor, mentor, volunteer, spouse, grandparent, translate into repeated, emotionally salient cognitive challenges that feel meaningful rather than like chores. What good social engagement looks like? Not every social interaction is equally protective. The forms that yield the biggest benefits are regular face-to-face contact when possible, a weekly coffee, a class, a shared hobby. Relationships that require active contribution, not only passive presence. Helping someone, teaching, caregiver roles that aren't overwhelming. Cross-generational contact. Children and teens stimulate different conversational modes. Activities with moderate complexity. Book clubs, choir, community theater, language tandems, group exercise where you coordinate with partners. Emotional closeness. People you can confide in and who confide in you. Simple, practical ways to strengthen social life. If this feels daunting, start tiny. Small, consistent actions beat grand but unsustainable plans. Micro habits, daily to weekly. The 2-minute reach out. Send one text or voice message each day to someone you care about. Keep it short. A question, a memory, a photo, but follow up the next day if they reply. The weekly ritual. One in-person or video call that lasts 20 to 45 minutes where you give and receive attention. A phone date, a walk with a neighbor. The civic half hour. Spend 30 minutes a week on a low-commitment volunteer task. Reading to children. Serving once a month at a food pantry. Answering phones for a local line. It builds purpose and social ties. The learning duo. Pair a new skill with a partner. Take a language class together and commit to practicing for 15 minutes twice weekly with that partner. Concrete entry points. Reclaim an old friend. Use a simple script. Hi, it's Maria. I was thinking of you. Do you have time for coffee next Tuesday? Most people welcome reconnection more than you expect. Join a class. Look for beginner-level groups. Dancing, choir, pottery, walking clubs. Bring a friend the first time if that helps. Start a microgroup. Invite 2 neighbors for a monthly potluck or film night. Small groups are easier to sustain than large ones. Offer your skills. Tutor a child. Teach a short workshop at the library, or help someone with technology for an hour a week. Teaching cements your own learning and creates dependable contact. Intergenerational programs. Libraries, schools, and community centers often have reading or mentorship programs that pair elders with children or young adults. Addressing common barriers. Mobility, hearing loss, grief, and transportation are real obstacles. Solutions exist. Hearing. Treatable hearing loss is strongly linked with cognitive decline. If hearing is difficult, seek a hearing evaluation. And, when appropriate, hearing aids or assistive devices. Even modest improvements in hearing dramatically increase social participation. Mobility. Choose nearby activities, or swap roles with a friend. You host once, they host next time. Explore community transport options, or rideshare. Transportation and weather. If going out is hard, establish reliable video or phone routines. Video is better than phone when possible because visual cues enrich conversation. Energy and fatigue. Plan social activities at your best time of day. Short, frequent, high-quality interactions beat long, draining ones. Anxiety and introversion. Small, structured groups, a class with a clear agenda, are more forgiving than open social hours. Bring a task to the meeting, a question to ask others, or a short thing to share, so the burden of initiating conversation is lower. Designing a weekly template that ties everything together. Here's a practical 7-day outline that integrates movement, learning, diet, sleep, and social contact. Adjust the duration and intensity to your abilities. Monday, 30-minute brisk walk in daylight, plus 20-minute language practice. App. 5-minute call to a friend. Tuesday, 45-minute community class, yoga, dance, or choir. Whole food dinner with vegetables and olive oil. 15 minutes reading a chapter of a book to discuss with your microgroup. Wednesday, strength/resistance training, 20-30 minutes. 20 minutes of music practice. Visit or video call with a family member. Thursday, volunteer half hour or neighbor check-in. 20-minute nap or relaxation session, progressive muscle relaxation. Practice a challenging puzzle or skill. Friday, social outing, coffee, movie, hobby meetup. Protein-rich dinner, brief journaling before sleep. Saturday, longer outdoor activity, hike, gardening. Cook a Mediterranean-style meal with a friend or family member. Sunday, restful morning, light stretching. 20 minutes of novel learning, e.g. a short documentary. Plan next week's social contacts. Monitoring progress and when to seek help. Improvements are often subtle. Track behaviors rather than moods alone. Did you complete 3 walks this week? 2 calls? 1 class? Are you remembering names, appointments, or recently learned phrases more easily? Is sleep more consolidated, less midnight waking? Are you enjoying interactions, laughing, or feeling less alone? Red flags that warrant professional evaluation. Noticeable decline in daily functioning, difficulty managing finances, medications, or familiar tasks. Sudden accelerating memory loss or confusion. New or increasing disorientation in space or time. Significant changes in personality, judgment, or mood. If you or someone close to you sees these signs, consult a clinician who can evaluate for mild cognitive impairment, reversible causes, thyroid disease, B12 deficiency, sleep apnea, medication effects, and discuss appropriate follow-up or imaging. A note on medications, supplements, and trials. No pill replaces the cumulative power of lifestyle changes. Some medications can help symptoms of dementia when already diagnosed. Some supplements show modest benefits in specific contexts. Always discuss with a healthcare professional before beginning any new drug or supplement. If you're interested in experimental treatments, ask your clinician about clinical trials. Many trials require baseline lifestyle optimization and offer close monitoring. Story: small changes, big returns. Think of Ruth, one name among many. She was 68, retired, and gradually withdrawing after her husband's death. Her days became a string of chores and TV. Her memory lapses felt more pronounced, and she felt adrift. She started with one habit, a weekly walking group at the park. The first month she mostly listened. By month 3, she was leading a short route, asking the newcomer about her family, and signing up to teach a once-monthly chair yoga class at the senior center. She picked up Spanish on the bus during her commute home from the class, and she began helping at a local reading program once a month. 2 years later, Ruth's objective memory tests improved modestly. Subjectively, she felt steadier, happier, and more needed. The things that changed were not giant. A walk, a class, a volunteer hour, but they stacked together to reshape her days. Why small, sustainable beats large and sporadic? Routine matters more than intensity. A small habit performed consistently rewires life. It changes who you meet, where you go, what you talk about, and how you feel about yourself. The cognitive benefits follow. The evidence is clear. Novelty, challenge, social connection, movement, good sleep, and nutritious food act together, not in isolation. Each habit multiplies the effect of the others. Your starter checklist: 5 actions to begin tomorrow. 1. Schedule one social contact, call, visit, or video with a friend or family member this week and put it on your calendar now. 2. Choose one new skill to practice 20 minutes 3 times this week: music, language, art. 3. Plan 3 30-minute walks in daylight this week. 4. Improve one meal. Add a serving of vegetables, olive oil, or fatty fish this week. 5. If hearing feels diminished, book a hearing screening. Treatable hearing issues are a major driver of isolation. No single miracle exists, but a modest set of habits, repeated, reshapes risk. The work is not glamorous. It is ordinary, steady, relational. It asks only that you lean into life, that you tend your people, that you choose learning and movement and presence over passive routines. Those small choices, the weekly walk, the new chord learned, the phone call kept, aggregate into cognitive reserve and into days that feel richer. There is more to say about concrete weekly plans, how to adapt these habits to specific limitations, and ways caregivers can sustain these routines for loved ones without burning out. If you want, we can build a personalized 12-week program for your situation, with daily prompts, scripts for difficult conversations, and fallback plans for bad days. And map how to measure progress without obsessing over numbers. For now, begin with one call, one walk, and one 20-minute learning block. Those are the simplest, strongest moves you can make. If you want that 12-week roadmap, here is a version you can adapt to mobility, energy, living situation, and the clinician's recommendations. It's deliberately small step, concrete, and built so each week stacks on the last. Treat it as a template, not as law. Change the pacing if needed, substitute activities that fit culture and preference, and involve a clinician when medical issues or safety concerns arise. How to use this plan. Choose one of the 3 intensity tracks below. Gentle, for limited mobility frailty; moderate, typical older adult with good endurance; active, for people already exercising and social. Set a weekly review day and time, 20 minutes, with yourself or a caregiver to note wins, barriers, and 1 tweak for next week. Keep a simple tracker, 3 boxes per day: move, connect, learn. Check a box when you do even a little. Aim for patterns, not perfection. 12-week starter. Weekly targets, general. Movement, 3x per week, 20 to 40 minutes. Walking, chair exercises, balance work. Include 1 strength session. Body weight, bands, twice weekly if tolerated. Social, 1 to 3 meaningful social contacts per week. Call, visit, group. 1 group activity per week when possible. Cognitive novelty, 3x per week, 20 minutes. Language app, music practice, puzzles, learning a recipe. Sleep hygiene, fixed wake sleep window, screen darkening 1 hour before bed. Nutrition, add 1 extra vegetable day, swap processed snack for nuts or fruit, include fatty fish twice weekly, or plant omega-3s. Hearing/vision/meds. Schedule any overdue screenings or med reviews within the first month. Weeks 1 through 4. Establish the habit base. Week 1. Start only the basics. Move 3 short walks, 10 to 20 minutes. 1 social contact. 1 20-minute learning block. Book a hearing screen or medication review if due. Celebrate 3 checked boxes this week as success. Week 2. Add a balance or strength move after 1 walk. Sit to stand, calf raises. Try a social meeting in a public place, park bench, community center. Choose a small learning goal, 10 new words of a language, learn 1 song chord. Week 3. Increase 1 walk to 30 minutes. Invite someone to join 1 walk. Create a bedtime routine, wind down, lower lights. Make 1 meal greener. Week 4. Teach someone the small skill you began. Shows consolidation. Do a brief cognition-friendly outing, library talk, museum tour. Review meds and sleep with clinician as needed. Weeks 5 through 8. Intensify novelty and connection. Weeks 5 through 6. Add a weekly group class, chair yoga, pool class, book club. Introduce 1 cross-training activity, Tai Chi or dance. Start a multi-week learning project, begin a short course, a 12-song playlist to learn. Weeks 7 through 8. Volunteer once monthly, even 1 hour, or host a small gathering. Begin varied cognitive tasks on alternating days. Music 1 day, puzzles another, language yet another. Check hearing aids or amplification solutions if needed. Weeks 9 through 12. Embed and expand. Weeks 9 through 10. Lead an outing or teach a mini-class, 1 walk route, a recipe, a craft. Add longer social interactions, a shared hobby that meets regularly. Weeks 11 through 12. Consolidate into routine. Assess which habits are sustainable and which to drop. Plan the next 12 weeks with 2 stable pillars, movement and connection, plus 1 rotating novelty, art, language, music. Adaptations and fallback plans. Bad day plan. If fatigue or low mood hits, switch to a mini session. 5 minutes of movement, a 5-minute call, and a single page of reading. The objective is continuity, not intensity. Mobility limits. Convert walks to seated marches, pool walking, or short mobility circuits. Use audio learning if vision is impaired. Hearing or vision loss. Choose activities with amplified sound, larger print, or tactile engagement. Music, clay, cooking. Cognitive fluctuation. Do challenging tasks when alert, often morning. Reserve lighter social or sensory activities for low-energy times. Scripts for hard conversations. When you need to ask someone to join or to help. I find it easier to keep doing things when we do them together. Would you walk with me on Tuesdays? When broaching decline with I've noticed memory changes and it's affecting daily life. I'd like an evaluation and steps I can try to slow or manage this. When discussing safety, driving, stairs with a loved one, I want to keep you safe and independent. Can we try a temporary change and review it in a month? Use we language and revisit decisions together. Caregiver supports and boundaries. Build a team. Rotate short responsibilities so no one person bears every chore. Small, scheduled help, 2 hours per week, prevents crisis. Guard time off. Every caregiver needs a regular break. Plan respite and real leisure. Watch for burnout signs, chronic fatigue, irritability, withdrawal. Seek support groups or professional counseling early. Practical tools. Shared calendars, medication blister packs, simple checklists reduce cognitive load for both caregiver and person cared for. Measuring progress without obsession. Use function markers. Can they manage bills with oversight? Do they attend social events? Are they keeping one learned skill? Track mood and engagement. The single best outcome is improved daily satisfaction and fewer withdrawn days. Short reviews. 30 minutes every 2 weeks to note 3 wins, 1 problem, and 1 small change. Over months, wins should outnumber setbacks. When to escalate clinically. New safety concerns, falls, unsafe driving, swift declining function, or worrying mood changes warrant prompt clinician contact. Imaging, neuropsychological testing, or medication review may be advised. Final note. Failure is data. Not every week will feel like progress. Plateaus and setbacks are part of the process. Treat each day as a chance to choose one small act that keeps you connected to life. Ruth's change didn't happen from one grand promise. It came from countless small returns to the world. Start with 1 call, 1 walk, and 1 20-minute learning block. Then keep going. On a cool morning in the 10th week, Ruth tied the laces of her walking shoes with hands that steadied more easily than they had a season before. A pale sun pushed through the blinds. The house smelled of coffee and lemon cleaner. She paused at the door to fold a small tote, water bottle, a paperback with large print, and the list she carried now like a gentle map. 3 small goals for the day. Walk 20 minutes, call Nora, practice 3 chords from the new song. She felt the familiar tug of doubt, then the steadier pull of habit. The walk was slower than it had once been, but not empty. On the route she led once a week for a small group of neighbors, she kept the pace that fit the slowest among them and found conversation filled the rest. They stopped at a bench shaded by a maple. A neighbor shared a photo of a grandson's first tooth. Another asked for a recipe for the vegetable fritters Ruth had taught last month. Ruth's voice found its rhythm, not loud, only clear. And when she returned home, she made the fritters, improvising measurements by sight and by memory. She had lost quantities before. She relied on texture now, on smell, on the small logic of cooking. The fritters came out golden. Emma, her daughter, bit into one and laughed at how something so ordinary seemed to taste like a celebration. Those small celebrations multiplied into traction. Week by week, Ruth became someone who could invite instead of wait to be invited. When energy flagged, she used the bad day plan. 5 minutes of seated marches while listening to a familiar hymn, a 2-minute phone call to Nora, an episode of a radio drama instead of a dense article. Those mini-sessions kept her connected. They kept the momentum from dissolving into inaction. At week 11, Dr. Patel, Ruth's geriatrician, requested a focused medication review. They met in the clinic room with soft light and a kettle whistling somewhere beyond the door. Ruth described nights broken by wakefulness, a new grogginess after lunch, and a growing unease with stairs. Dr. Patel listened and adjusted timing on 2 prescriptions and suggested a sleep hygiene tweak Ruth agreed to try. Lower lights an hour earlier, keep a single warm cup of decaffeinated tea before bed, and a short wind-down routine of reading a familiar poem. The team also recommended a brief neuropsychological reassessment to map cognitive strengths and guide activities, memory strategies that suited Ruth's learning style rather than a one-size approach. Those clinical changes felt technical, but their effects were practical. The morning after the first med timing adjustment, Ruth woke clear-headed enough to recall a neighbor's birthday and to pick up the phone without rehearsing what to say. The right combination did not cure every lapse. It carved out more predictability in the day. Predictability is a quiet ally in the work of staying engaged. Caregiving tasks were redistributed with the new plan. Emma agreed to evenings, helping with dinner twice a week and taking on 1 clinic appointment per month. Nora took the Tuesday walk. A local volunteer, Marco, came on Saturdays for tea and a craft project that gave Ruth new reasons to practice fine motor tasks. The rotation meant fewer surprises for any one person and preserved margins for rest. When Emma felt guilt flare, "Should I be doing more?" they used the script learned in the guide and said aloud, "We'll try this for a month and review." That "we" language removed pressure and created a shared experiment rather than a verdict. Ruth's mini-class, the one she led at the community room after week 9, became a hinge point. She taught 1 recipe, then another resident asked if she could teach knitting. Ruth hesitated, then agreed to lead 2 tables, each with a different focus: food and craft. The room filled with low, companionable noise, yarn sliding over needles, the clink of teaspoons. One man who had fallen silent since his wife moved to assisted living began to return each week, opening up in fragments about the garden he once kept. The class was not therapy. It was a public square, in miniature, a place where competence and recognition were reciprocated. Ruth left each session tired and buoyed. Measuring progress remained deliberately modest. They kept function markers. Could Ruth manage bill envelopes with oversight? Yes, with the checklist and a weekly double-check by Emma. Was she attending social events? Twice a week at minimum. Had she kept 1 learned skill? The class and the kitchen proved they had. On the fortnightly 30-minute review, the family noted 3 wins: a full recipe made without written prompts, a successful 20-minute outdoor conversation, a day when she slept through most of the night. They listed 1 problem, afternoon fatigue, and tried 1 small change: an earlier lunch and a 15-minute rest before activity. Over months, wins began to outnumber the setbacks. Not every setback became a crisis. Once, in week 13, Ruth had a day of intense confusion. She misplaced her purse, found it later in the freezer, and grew frightened by how strange that felt. Emma called the fallback plan, and they reduced demands for 2 days: short walks, familiar radio programs, and no appointments. They logged the episode and flagged it for Dr. Patel. The clinician recommended a short reassessment and a temporary safety review for stairs. A handrail was installed and a light by the top step. The family treated the episode as data, not a last chapter. The old fear that every odd moment meant irreversible decline lessened under the routine of response. By the 4th month, their plan had matured into a pattern. 2 pillars, movement and connection, anchored the week, and a rotating novelty gave the days a sense of forward motion. Sometimes the novelty was language, a 5-minute phrase in Spanish to learn together. Sometimes it was art, a shared collage on Sunday afternoons. Those novelties nourished curiosity without demanding mastery. Ruth's sense of identity shifted in small, practical ways. She began telling stories again, anecdotes about a gardening neighbor, memories of a market she'd run within younger years, and listening became less draining. When the family asked how she felt about driving, Ruth surprised them. She agreed to a trial change, letting Emma drive for a month for errands beyond a 5-mile radius, then to reassess. The conversation had been hard, but it ended with an agreement and a plan for review, exactly the kind of safe compromise the scripts had been designed to produce. There were quieter transformations, too. A renewed confidence when she led the monthly library visit, the way she started keeping one cookbook open on a kitchen shelf for daily reference, the small ritual of writing today's 3 goals on a Post-it and letting that paper live on the counter. These were not dramatic reversals. They were returns, soft recoveries of threads that had frayed. The work was not done. The family continued their fortnightly short reviews, the clinician monitored mood changes, and Ruth kept the habit of choosing one small act each day. But what had been technical recommendations on a printed plan now felt like an ongoing life, a practiced way to meet the world. When friends asked how she was, Ruth no longer answered with a list of deficits. She spoke about the recipe she'd finally mastered, about a neighbor's grandson who learned to ride a bike, about how a tune that used to be only background had become a lesson she planned to teach the next class. And so the next planning session began like the others, a quick review, one adjustment, one small goal. They planned the coming 12 weeks with what they'd learned: sustain the pillars, rotate novelty, keep rescue plans ready. This felt less like a checklist and more like a living map. Maps change with the terrain, and they had learned to read it. On a Sunday late in spring, Ruth sat at the kitchen table with a single daisy in a glass and the morning light warm on her hands. Emma passed by and kissed her forehead. "We've still got a way to go," Emma said, and meant both the careful vigilance and the hope they had planted. Ruth smiled, and for the moment the smile was enough. Hope in a small, steady body. A reason to pick up the tote and walk another route, to teach another recipe, to keep choosing life in increments. They closed the meeting with a plan for a short community announcement, an invitation for anyone who might like a walking partner or a chair yoga session. Ruth folded the paper carefully, slid it into her tote, and stood. It was only one invitation, but it was another way of saying yes to the slow work of staying connected. She stepped into the sunlight and the next small act of living.